Hi there everyone, this is Drago here. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be attempting my very first guide video, and for today it's on Valheim, and what I'm going to be attempting to do is show everyone how I like to make my little round towers for my bases. So for full disclosure, in this guide I will be using the dev commands for the creative mode, which means that I won't be needing to use the crafting station or any resources. So for anyone out there that is planning to play normally, or even online with friends, so you can't have creative mode, this will cost you quite a bit of resources, so it will take you quite a bit of time to do this. But this will be just a rough idea on how you can make this a little bit easier. So let's just jump into it, and we'll see how we go on. So first of all, what I like to do is, as you can see around me, I like to try and find a nice open area and just try and flatten out the ground as much as you possibly can. I just done this as a quick 2 second job right here, so it's not the best, but for the sake of this video it should work perfectly fine. So naturally the first thing you want to do is bring out your little crafting mallet, and what I like to do in this situation is use these 4x2 walls. It gives you just a decent sized tower, and it makes things just a little bit easier, but if you want something smaller you probably could go with the 2x1. So what I'll do is, after I've done this one, I'll jump in and try and show you a little 2x1 tower, and so just so you can get a rough idea on what it's like. Now if you wanted, you don't have to use the walls, you can try and use like your wood walls and things like that, but what I find is that the stone walls tend to be stronger, so that way you can kind of build higher. And sometimes it is a good idea while you're building to also use iron poles, which I'll show you a little bit about that here as well. So naturally, when you are starting, you are going to be needing your crafting table. So you will need just your regular workbench. You'll need obviously your forge. If you're planning on using the iron poles that I mentioned, you will also be needing your, where's the other one? Your stone cutter. So that's one of the main ones if you're going to be doing this normally. So those are basically the main items you will be using for doing this. So let's just get into the building. So right here, so the best way to do it is find a nice little spot to start, and start here. So when you're starting, what to do is when you clip it in, you just move it slightly, just 1 point. So not even, but no more than that, just 1 point. So you probably will end up with your little gaps here, but we can easily fill that in later so it looks a bit better on the outside. But for now, let's just do it like this. So you just keep going around, making sure that it's clipping on the inside, so it looks a lot like it's a nice easy curve. So right here you've got a little semi archway here, nice little corner. So even if you were just trying to do a normal build and you just wanted round corners, you can still use this technique to kind of do that. So from here, if you were doing a normal build, you can just keep going straight up from here, or you could even just kind of go inwards to kind of have like that little triangle sort of thing. So let's just keep going, and we'll get the full circle done. So here we go. Now this generally is a lot easier, if you've made a big enough area. By the looks of it, I didn't make mine too big, but it'll still be fine for the sake of this. Now, there's a few different ways on how you can possibly do this, but this gives you a rough idea. And when I use this particular block, as it says, you get a nice little size to it. So what I generally do is I make mine quite a few blocks high, so from here it just makes it quite, just a little bit easier. Now I will go into a little bit further. Oh, I've done that wrong. Just bear with me. So as you're going round, you can see that the columns are all lining up nicely here. Now, I will also show for anyone that wants to do multi-story towers, obviously so you can have more than one floor, I'll attempt to show you a little bit on how you can make your stairs for these towers. Obviously with it being round like this, it can be a little bit difficult to get a proper elevation going upwards, since obviously the stairs are straight and they don't curve round, and sometimes it can look a little bit awkward, but luckily enough there are ways you can get around that without making it look too messy. So let's just finish this. So I usually like to go about 3-4 high for these sorts of things before I start making the floors and stuff. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this 2 high, and then I'm going to start with the floors. So what I like to do is I like to use these iron beams here. Whether it's on the ground or you're making it for higher up, it doesn't really matter. But what I like to do, especially if you're making higher up floors, is try and get this as close to, so I'll just make it here at the top actually. So usually, I can't get it in today, sorry about that. So I hate these world saves. Yeah, that snap usually works. So I usually try and get it at the bottom, and I usually try and get it to an extent that it's right in the middle. Now, see how it clips on the edges here? That can sometimes work, but not always, so I like to try and get it in the middle. Now, no, I don't have the space to pick up. What I'll do, just for the sake of the video, is I'm going to get these, and I'm just going to go around the edge, so it just makes just like a little barrier going around here. Now, this is usually where I like to build in the actual, let me get rid of some of this stuff quickly, because I've got far too much according to this. Why is it not picking stuff up? That's a bit strange. Don't worry about that. Usually that picks it up automatically, but that's fine. Let me just refill this quickly. There we go. Here. So I usually like to use these poles either at these points, just like right here. So sometimes on the inside you get this sort of rustic little look, so you've got the wood and the stone, and when you've got it all lined up like that, it can also help with the structural integrity of your buildings, especially if you're using the wood walls instead of the stone walls. But these iron poles, if you can line them up perfectly inside of the actual blocks, then it'll also make it stronger. So you can gently build a little bit higher. But for sake of here, I'm just going to start with this block here actually. I'm just not going to go all the way around for the moment. So using the iron beam, since I've managed to get a couple in the middle, it allows me to get right in the middle of the block, and this will actually help line things up for you starting your little build for the floors. And as you can see with the iron poles, they actually go quite far before they start to break. And with it being like this, because I've done it just a single 4x2 block, they line up perfectly from wall to wall in each direction. And obviously once you've gone halfway, so let me just check that. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that 5? Let me check. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 10 across, okay? So 3, 4, 5. So right in the middle here. So that way you end up with a little cross section. Now, in some cases you can stop with that, and you know what? There would be nothing wrong with that. It all depends on each individual person on how you want to do it. But what I generally like to do is, sticking to the middle, I like to keep going, although I've messed that part up. So I like to have them stuck right in the middle there, and that way it kind of goes all the way around, as you will see. This just kind of gives it a nice little look as well, especially if you are building the floors on top of it. So if you're having a multi-story tower and you're looking underneath, it kind of gives it that nice little roundish look, and instead of a cross look. But then again, like it says, everyone's different. You can use whichever one you like. I personally prefer this one. I always find that it looks a little bit better, and it always reaches from wall to wall when I do it like this as well. So let's just have this. And once I've done this corner, we'll get to the actual flooring. So let me activate this first. So as you can see from above, like from the middle there, you can see it goes all the way around in a neat little circle, apart from that corner that I've messed up a little bit, but don't worry too much about that, I'll fix that. Now, the fun part here is naturally the floors. What I also like to do, that I should have mentioned first, is the iron poles. So for example, because I've got the ground here and I'm building one up, I like to go underneath and make sure it's clipping into the floors, at least at a couple of spots, and I do that generally throughout most of the floors. And as I say, this generally just helps you with the structure, just making sure that everything is staying up and it won't fall down. However, that is entirely your choice, so let's get started. So here we've got the stone floors, the 2x2 floors, and what I do is I start with the cross section. So as you can see, it takes 2 stone for 1 wall, and since I've got this here, this just makes it so I can easily just go right across it and nothing will fall down, because it's actually got something to clip onto. If you had to do it without these poles, when you start building outwards, the structure of the stone, which I will demonstrate from back here, after a while, without anything, it just collapses. You know, there's nothing there for it. You know, so that's why I have the poles. It just helps it a lot better. Now, there are multiple ways of doing these floors, but I prefer doing it this way. But what I will show you in a moment is around the edges, because it is like this. But as I say, the first thing I like to do is the cross section. It's always the easiest part to do, and once you've got that, everything else just pretty much falls right into place. So, like that. So as for these parts here, you just do as you've done with the walls, you just turn it by 1 point, and then you put your 2 down, turn by 1 point again, put your 2 down, and just keep going. So as you can see, it just clips against the wall each and every time. You might need to switch about with your snipping settings if you can't get it quite like that. Now, some people might go around the edge like this first and continue having it go around until you reach the middle. It can work. However, what I found at times is that sometimes it looks a little bit messy. And I'll show you that a little bit later on, because I have a build that I've been working on further over there, and that is one of the things that I've done. So as you can see here, I now have the circle going all the way around, and then from here it's just pretty straightforward. You just fill in the gaps, and because I've done the cross section, it makes this part so much easier. So obviously you get the little triangle parts here, and it's just a case of just point and it'll clip in perfectly, like that. That one looks a little bit messed up actually, let me fix that. As you can see, doing it this way, as long as you have the resources, the floors typically don't take that much effort. Just makes it all that much easier. As you can see, it just seamlessly goes right around the edges, and the floor in itself, as long as it's all lined up perfectly, minus the occasional gaps, which I need to fix that one anyway. Yeah, it lines up perfectly, it has a neat little pattern to it, and it doesn't look a mess. That's generally how you can do the base of it. So naturally, what I'm going to do next is build up the wall for the next floor, and then we're going to climb up it with the stairs, which is obviously the most fun part. So I'm not going to go all the way around for the wall, I'm just going to do enough to show the actual stairs themselves. So let me go back and start building our wall. So I'm only going to go for a quarter circle here. Honestly, probably won't even need that, but I do need to be too high, which again can sometimes be a little bit of a pain, which is sometimes why I mentioned having these, because it generally makes it a little bit easier. But what you can usually do is, once you've actually built, you can actually jump on top of these things and continue building on top. So you don't actually need to have the creative mode to do this, to be honest, because I don't know if you may have noticed that when you're actually holding the sprint button with the jump, you can jump over pretty much anything. That includes the majority of your buildings as well, and you kind of jump a little bit higher with it. So let's just finish this quickly. I really should turn my phone off quickly actually, so it stops interfering with the video. Bear with me just a moment. There we go. That should settle it down. Move that to the side. Right, so here we go. As you can see, some parts are starting to go a bit yellow around here, while these parts are green. The reason for that, as you can probably tell, is because these parts here have the poles. Actually, maybe if I do it like this, so it might be easier. This part has the poles going through it, which gives it that extra stability. Well, these ones up here, they don't have that. They don't have those poles for the so obviously the higher you go, that'll turn to red, and then you won't be able to build on top of it. So this is the main reason why I suggest having these little poles. You either try and build it at the sides, so you're inside of the walls, or you can just build it like this. And often enough, it doesn't look half bad when you do it like that. So that's usually how I start with that. Now, as for getting up to the next level, this is where things start getting a little bit interesting. Now, where are these stairs again? Stone stairs. You can try using these ones if you want, you know, for the wooden ones, if you're making a wooden base. Should work just the same. I always find these ones to be quite handy. So I'm going to start here, first of all. Okay. Now, you may have noticed that if I try to build to the next level, that just instantly destroys. So what I like to do is I like to get these, and I like to build it like that. And that means that if I do this, it'll clip right on. And as you can see, it leaves a bit of a gap under the stairs, so essentially the higher your stairs are going, if I can get this done right, or you can just do it sideways actually as well, you know, kind of like this. Do it like that, or you can do it like that. Either way, you can get it to look kind of neat. And then you just get your stairs. And then once I go to this one now, as you saw earlier, it just instantly broke when I tried to clip onto here. And now it stays. I know this looks a little bit rough at the moment, but we can easily just fix that up. Yeah, it looks a little bit rough now, but that's perfectly fine. So as I say, there's two different ways on how to add these into it. I usually prefer doing it like this, because by the time you put your stairs on it, you got this nice little curve going between each floor. And most of the time you can do it on the inside, or you can do it in both parts of the stairs, and it still looks kind of neat. Now let's try and get the next floor up. Yeah, for some reason this one is being a little bit annoying today. There we go. I'm only going to go as far as this part here, as you may be able to tell. Stairs. Helps if I clip this right. So I'll just do it like that for now. And as you can see, that's starting to go yellow. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to put some beams here. Now, I'm not going to put it right there, because sometimes that kind of affects it a little bit. And then naturally from there, you can start putting your walls, your stairs in. Now as you saw, when I tried to clip it straight away there, it just kept crumbling. And because of the height that I'm at, and because the lack of structure, it's going orange. This is why I mentioned earlier about these. But overall, that's generally how you make your stairs. So once I've got this off, so I'm no longer flying around, you can easily just keep on the inside and scroll all the way up. But this is just a rough guide. I've normally made it look a lot better, which I'll show you in a moment actually. So that's generally how I do that one. I'll try making a slightly smaller tower using the smaller bricks in just a moment. So let me just fly over here. This is something that I've been working on, and as you can see, I've got 4 little towers. And here I have some stairs. So as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that goes up the space of 2.5 blocks. So that's all it says. I've got the floor here and halfway through the block. So it's essentially the bottom half of this wall is where the stone floor is based. And then from there, I've went 2 up, turned it, and then turned it again. Well, essentially 5, I suppose, yeah, because you've got the one right here where the floor of the next level begins. And when I mentioned that you can do your floors 2 ways, that you can keep going around in circles, this here is how I showed it. So I've went all the way around in the circle, and then I've just kept going inside in the circles. And as you can tell, when you get to the middle sort of range, it starts to look a little bit wonky. So if you're doing the floors, I would generally stick to doing it the way that I'd done it in the video. And from here, it was a bit more of a rush job for these stairs, but again, it works just all the same. Except in this tower, what I've done is I took out 4 of the middle blocks to add pillars as well as walls to create a chimney for a fireplace. I don't have any wood on me in a moment. So yeah, if you wanted to create a little fire for cooking or heat or just the general things, this is the way I done it. So I made the little pillars here, and I had that in the middle, and then from there I just built up. And again, as you can see underneath, I've went around from the centre of each wall, and it doesn't look absolutely terrible, and it goes all the way through, so it clips directly to the wall in the middle, and this helps keep it stable. Personally, I like these bigger towers a little bit better because it means you can get a little bit more done in them. So you can get things like your portals and so forth, storage and all that sort of thing in it. So as just a quick thing, let me just try and level some of this out. I'll get rid of some of that stone in a moment. I shouldn't need too big of an area here because I'll be using the smaller blocks. Obviously these bigger rocks are always a pain to destroy. Now you can always use your pickaxe to dig into the ground and try and flatten it all out. And that's what I done for my little castle that you just saw that I had been working on normally. I used my pickaxe to dig out the ground around it and then flatten it. And I used that to then build. So from here I'm going to start in the middle, and again, building tool, let's repair it first. So instead of using the 4x2, I'm going to go for 2x1. So let's just place it down, and it's just the same thing as before. You just clip on it, you turn once, and you just keep going round. It's essentially the same number of blocks. So as you can see, 5 makes it a little quarter arch. And you got your half circle already, and again it's exactly the same as before. Naturally, with the smaller towers, I've had to do it like this, so it's very tiny, very basic, just depending on how you want to use it. You know, even it's just like a little campfire sort of thing, or even like a bonfire, you can, quite small. You can see the size difference right away when I look at the two of them. See, if I scroll up, go up a little bit, despite the fog, you can still see there's the small one, there's the big one. So depending on how you want to do this, it would depend on the sort of size that you want. Now, I mentioned before about the outside. So as you can see, you got the little cracks in the walls at the side here, and the same with here. So what I like to do is I generally like to use these 1x1 blocks. So especially if you're on, say, this one here. If you do it right, if you can actually get it perfect, you can generally just... The clipping in these things can be an absolute nightmare sometimes, just so you know. So generally, if you can get it perfect, you can just stick it right in and it'll look great. But obviously with these smaller ones, it might be a little bit more tricky. But as you'll see over here, if I do it here, you get the angle right. I usually just use these ones actually. I use the stone pillars sometimes. Just because it sometimes looks a bit better, you know? It kind of smooths it off a little bit, as you can see. But that again is entirely up to you. Sometimes in these little gaps you might want to... Why am I walking on his own? I want to stop that. You might want to do other things, like you might want to have your poles even your dividers, sometimes even your little cages. You know, you can always do something to spice it up. Now, I know some people will want to have windows as such. Again, what I suggest doing is building up your wall like such, and then once you've done it, especially if you're doing it with the wood around each block, then all you simply need to do is, so for example, we're going to get this crystal wall here as a window, and we're going to put it right here. So you just destroy it after you've built around it, so everything is stuck together, and then you just stick on. That one is a little bit too high. Now obviously, because this is crystal I'm using, it's a little bit more annoying to actually see it. You need to watch where you're clipping these, because the crystals won't clip to themselves, so they'll always need something around it to clip onto. So you kind of need to be wary of that. But as you can see, stone walls with a little window. You can do it the same whether you're wanting to use just a blank space with the little archways as your windows. You can just do it the exact same way. So as here, that way. Oh. Yeah, because of the integrity here, that's why that was not working. Yeah, let me fix that. This is why I suggest using things like this. It just really helps it, you know. But again, a little window. Perfect. Just like that. That's all you really need to do. Straightforward, not overly complicated. You know, all I can really suggest is just fiddle around with it a little bit, and you'll get the hang of it. It'll get a lot easier, and you'll find your own little style on how you want it to look. Again, it doesn't matter what resources you're using. I generally just find the walls to be the better ones because they're stronger, they have a lot more defence, and they're a lot bigger, so you can get a bit of a bigger base. Well, if you had to go for something like the wood here, you know, you can do it just the same. I forgot to turn that one. As you can see, what I'll do first is I'll do this. So sometimes if it's too low and you can't get it to clip, what I like to do is I just keep going on the floor so you can actually see it kind of phase through it, and then you just click again. So it still works, it counts towards the integrity of it. So as you saw before, that was yellow. That's not yellow anymore. You know, so you can just keep going. Just like that. Works all the same. As you can see though, that with these wood walls, they're not as big as it would normally be. And as you can tell, your tools can tend to break quite quickly. So it's just a case of just keeping up with the repairs. But that's basically it. And, you know, not quite as difficult as you might have expected. So as I say, just practice. Keep trying. You'll get there. You ever need any help? Feel free to ask. And I do hope that this video was at least a little bit helpful. As I say, I've never done these sort of videos before. So any feedback would still be greatly appreciated. And again, I hope you all enjoy your days. And thanks again for watching. Thank you very much. Goodbye.